Good morning. Man, I love being here with you guys, man. I really, really do. I so do. I'm really encouraged by our worship together. I don't know if you have the same experience or not. I hope you do. But I love that we get to do this together. And I know we've got, snow and sickness and all the other things going on, but still what a wonderful blessing it is to be together. But still, though, I think that this morning we could use a little jolt. In addition to maybe the coffee that you have already taken in this morning. So we're going to do a little crowd participation to begin this morning's sermon. All right. Now I know many of you looked at each other and you've gone, "Oh no." What is going to happen now? Nothing big, just a raise of the hands. In fact, we did this on Tuesday just as a little fun table dismissal thing, but I just wanted to do it here Sunday morning as well. Okay, so hands up if you are married and you've been married for less than 5 years. Okay, keep them up. Less than 2 years. Less than 1 year. Yeah, this is close to what it came down to before. Less than 6 months. Less than 5 months. Less than 4 months. 3 months. Less than 2 months. Oh, man. Okay, hands back up, and you've been married for at least 5 years. Married for at least 5 years. At least 5. There should be a bunch of people in the room. Okay. Keep your hands up if you've been married for at least 10. At least 10 years. At least 10. At least 15 years. At least 15 years. At least 20 years. 25 years. At least 25. Ooh, got some hands that went down right there. At least 30 years. All right, we've got some people been in it for a little while. At least 35 years. At least 40 years. At least 40 years married. At least 45 years married. At least 50 years married. First of all, can we just say we got at least 50. At least 55. I just got to see where this goes now. At least 55. At least 60. At least 65. At least 70 years. Right? We're right about there. 65, 70 years. Guys, that's awesome. That is a very cool. I feel it's that thing that if you used to watch the Today Show back in the day, which I did because I was like 7 and weird, but I watched the Today Show in the morning, and they'd always do those things where they're like, these people are 100 years old today, or, that kind of thing. And they would ask them, what's their secret? And somebody would say, eat bacon every day. And I'm like, that cannot be the secret. There's no way that's the secret. And they're like, at least, do this. Sometimes I like to sit back and ask, okay, people have been married 50, 55, 60, 65 years. What is your secret? Well, I think I know the secret. And it comes from a Benjamin Franklin quote. And he says this: to ensure a happy life, keep your eyes wide open before you get married. And after you get married, keep them half shut. Right? Like, I don't think I like what I see, but I'm going to pretend like I can't see that. Right? Like that kind of thing. Keep them half shut. I love that because it's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. We actually talked about perspective last Sunday when we talked about God, excuse me, giving us grace glasses. That one of the effects of God's grace as it comes into our lives is it gives us grace glasses, which means that it changes how we see whatever it is we're looking at. And last week we talked about the fact that God gives us grace glasses to change how we see our success, change how we see things that work out in our lives. Instead of giving ourselves the old pat on the back, we say, man, it's all grace. It's all grace. It's all God's grace. Well, today, I want to talk about how grace glasses change how we see each other. They change how we see each other. In Luke chapter 6, Jesus is talking about our perspective. He's talking about this. He's talking pretty exclusively about this, actually, because he talks about the fact that there's a way in which we can look at one another and we can see each other clearly or not clearly. And it's got everything to do with the perspective that we're taking. The problem is that as sinful people who are naturally prideful, and we tend to, the thing about pride is that the larger the problem it is in our lives, the harder it is for us to see. Like, you cannot see that very easily. That's the problem. So it creates the scenario that we have today, which is we have a tendency with how we look at one another. This is at the top of your notes. We tend to look at other people through the microscope of judgment. We tend to look at other people through the microscope of judgment. I'm using those words very specifically. If you look at a microscope, you're seeing what some people might call the best view of any one thing. You're looking at it, and you're seeing the intimate details, right down to the cellular structure of what there is to see of the sample that you've got underneath the microscope. And the thing is, we have a tendency to see each other this way. Look at verses 41 and 42 of Luke chapter 6. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? The speck of sawdust in another's eye and the plank in your own eye. This is the comparison he's making. 42. He says this, how can you say to your brother, brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly. See, perspective. You will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. We tend to look at other people through the microscope of judgment. Why do we call it a microscope? Because he's looking at a speck. Have you ever tried to see a speck in somebody's eye? You ever had that? Somebody come up to you and said, oh man, I got something in my eye, can you see it? I don't know about you, but my answer almost always is, no, I cannot see whatever is in your eye. Like, it's just, okay, it's sort of like pulling their eyelid back, you know. Can you see it now? Can you see it now? I'm like, no, I don't know. I can't see it. Like, you have to really, you almost need a microscope in that moment to be able to see what's going on. But this is what Jesus is talking about. Our tendency when we look at one another is microscopic judgment. That's what our tendency is. We tend to look at somebody else and see a small sin issue, and we look at it because we're looking at it through a microscope. It has taken up our entire field of vision. So now what we see, 100% field of view, is their speck. And I cannot see my own plank. This is a problem. We do this. And so we judge one another. We're waiting to pounce or silently judge every little wrong move, every slip of the tongue, every tiny facial expression, every little mistake. We do this mostly to the people that we live with most often. We do it to our spouse. We do it to our kids. And then we label them, categorize them in our minds. They're liars, they're lazy, they're angry, they're manipulative. How are we looking at people? Are we looking at them through the microscope of judgment? Or are we looking at them through the glasses of grace? This is the discussion that we're going to have today. Grace glasses are not nearly as zoomed in as microscopes are. Grace glasses are not nearly as exacting. Grace glasses work a little more like this. I don't know if you remember this a little while ago. I gave you guys something I called the 1911 principle. And this is coming from Proverbs 19:11, which says that it's a glory to overlook an offense. That's what it says. By the way, that's a sin. That's a sin. It's not merely saying something that we find annoying or something like that. It's an offense. It's a sin. It's a glory to overlook an offense, to overlook it. I mean, to choose to overlook it, to look past it, to not even bring it up, to not even do anything with it. Like, this is a little more how grace glasses work. So let's talk for a little bit today. This is next in your notes. 6 viewpoints. 6 viewpoints that we will get when we choose to look at others through grace glasses. 6 viewpoints that we will get when we choose to look at others through grace glasses. Here's viewpoint number 1. We will see our sin before we see theirs. We choose to look through grace glasses. Here's the viewpoint we're going to get. We're going to see our sin before we see theirs. Verse 42 again, how can you say to your brother, brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. See, what Jesus is going for is a shift in perspective. As he said, if I'm looking at somebody else through the glasses of grace, the first thing I'm going to see is not the speck in their own eye. The first thing I'm going to see is, man, I got an issue in my life. Before I ever start diagnosing or figuring out or fixing your issue, I'm going to be focused on diagnosing, fixing my issue. This is what the perspective shift is going to give us, as we're looking at people through grace glasses. That means that I'm not looking through a microscope. It means I am looking and I can see that my sin is an issue. This comparison is comical. The plank in Greek is referring to a very large weight-bearing beam in a building. Okay? So this is, he's talking about a speck like this versus a weight-bearing beam in a building. It's just like, man, you know what the issue is? Your issue is so significant. Your sin issue that you have chosen to look past, to notice the speck in your brother's eye, is so huge that it's like you have a weight load, like a weight-bearing beam sticking out of your own eye. All the while going, hey, I see what's going on in your life. It's ridiculous. It's comical, and it's that way for a reason. Jesus is saying that when we look at others through the microscope of judgment, we are bound to be missing something huge in our own lives. We are bound to be missing something huge in our own lives. You think about this. How much time do I spend on a daily basis thinking about the sins of other people versus thinking about the sins of my own heart and my own mind? How much time do I spend being angry about the sins of other people in my life versus being angry about the sin of my own life? How much time am I doing? What kind of mental work am I doing in that way? Receiving God's grace makes us humble. We realize that we're broken people. We are just as broken as anyone that we're looking at any time. And that is understanding, and that is seeing through grace glasses. So we're going to take the plank out first before we go performing spiritual surgery in our spouse's life or in our kids' lives or in the lives of somebody else that goes to this church. We need to evaluate and operate on ourselves regularly. Grace glasses help us see ourselves first and go, man, before I go calling anybody else out on what they got going on, I can understand, man, I got big issues in my heart and in my life that I need to sort out. And I'm seeing it through this perspective. Then, here's the thing. We go to the Lord with our plank. I go to the Lord and say, Father, I have this massive issue. I am jealous. I am negative. I have lust in my heart. I am greedy. We can take this plank to the Lord, and you know what we're going to receive from him when we do that? It's the word of the series, grace. Then, you know what we're going to have in our hands to give to somebody else when their little speck bothers us a little bit? What are we going to have? Grace. Viewpoint number one, we're looking at other people through grace glasses. We will see our sin before we see theirs. Here's the second viewpoint. Looking through grace glasses now, not the microscope of judgment. We will see their best before we see their worst. We will see their best before we see their worst. How many of us are looking at other people and the worst is what we notice first? Right? If we're honest. Especially people that we're married to, people we maybe been married to for 65 years. We look at them, we say, man, that thing, you know what? Here's the thing, in year 5, he did not put the cereal bowl in the sink when he was done. It's now year 65. See, I got you with that one, didn't I? I got you, Isaac. Guess what, Angel? Guess what? Ain't gonna change, okay? Just letting you know. Right now, I'm just telling you the truth, okay? I love that dude. I got all the hope in the world for him. But in that one, probably not gonna change, okay? Yeah, that's right. See? That's how the Lord brings you together. So it's a good thing I like to clean. Yes, right? It's like year 5, year 65, same thing. That's the way that it goes. When I look at them, what's the first thing that I see? What are the first things that I think about? We can actually train our minds over time, because this is an attitude actually. I develop an attitude towards somebody. All an attitude is a series of intentional thoughts chosen over time. That's an attitude. So I have a certain attitude toward the Green Bay Packers. Come on, you didn't think I was going to go a whole Sunday without saying it.
There's forgiveness.
What's the sound? Oh, it's the sound of brooms, baby. That's a season sweep of the Detroit Lions. Remember, we're looking at grace. We're looking through grace classes today, okay? I have a certain attitude that I've developed toward my spouse. I've got a certain attitude that I've developed toward, and that is an intentional series of thoughts. So this is just about choosing to think about somebody in an intentional way. And so realizing that we have attitudes toward people in this room. Don't look at them. don't look at them, you know. Okay, well, don't cover Scott's face. I mean, come on. You know, poor guy. We know he's not perfect, okay? But we have attitudes toward people in this room that we've chosen intentionally to think about them a certain way over time. So what's the first thing that I'm thinking of when I think of this person? Is it something bad or something good? Am I seeing their worst or seeing their best? Look what Jesus says at the beginning of this passage in verse 37. He says this, do not judge. He says, do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. So given, it will be given to you. These are all choices. They're all choices. Do not judge. Do not condemn. What am I looking at? See, here's the thing. We talked about judgment, what Jesus is talking about here. This kind of judgment, we talked about it a couple of years ago. We did a series called Do Not Judge. And I gave you this illustration right here. This right here. Okay? We said, what am I doing when I'm judging? So I'm taking any standard of behavior whatsoever, and I'm putting myself here and I'm putting you here. So when I look at somebody else, I actually have a vested interest in looking at their worst first, because it's easier for me to do this. That if I look at you and the first thing I see is your faults, your failings, your shortcomings, the things that are imperfect about you, the ugliness about you. And here's the thing that's so twisted about it, is that I'm supposed to be, if I'm somebody who is in close proximity to you, who's in your inner circle, who's living with you, I'm supposed to be the person that loves you the most. I'm the one who's supposed to be the safest place for you in your ugliness, and yet here I am looking through the microscope of judgment so that I can see the worst first and go like this: I'm up here and you're down here. And this is what Jesus says is wrong. It's wrong. And the antidote is to look through grace glasses, get my eye away from the microscope and look at grace glasses and see their best before their worst. The microscope of judgment is unforgiving, to say the least, but it also overinflates what we're looking at. We're looking at a speck, but because it's a microscope, it's filling my entire field of vision. So that's what I'm seeing all the time. Well, as long as I'm choosing to do that, as long as I'm choosing to go like this, you got to take your glasses off, look in a microscope, right? So I'm looking in here, and I go, see, yeah? There's that complaining right there, man. They complain all the time. All they do is complain. Is that all they do? In the microscope it is. But if I'm looking through the glasses of grace, I'm going to see things. See, if I'm a husband, you might say this. You might say, my wife gets mad at me so fast. She's got an anger problem. You say, maybe, but you missed it yesterday when she helped your daughter sort out her social problem at school. And when she packed your lunch for work, she included some beef jerky because she knows you love it. You missed those things because you were looking through the microscope of judgment. All right, wives. Oh, he's always looking at his stupid phone. He neglects me and the kids. Maybe he struggles with this. But you missed it yesterday when he worked 2 straight hours to fix the leak in the bathroom faucet. You missed it when he helped your son with his math homework for over an hour. You missed those things because you took the grace glasses off. We're looking through the microscope of judgment and we miss stuff. We're looking at that speck and we're not seeing the best. But part of love is seeing the best. What about parents? And say, man, this kid of ours just doesn't obey, or he obeys so slowly. Like he should have this down by now. Maybe that is the case, but you missed it yesterday when he shared his snack with his sister. And you missed it, but 3 weeks ago, he started hanging his coat up when he got home like you were harping on him to do so often before. We missed it because we're looking through the microscope and not through the glasses of grace. When we look at glasses of grace, we won't miss these things because we're looking out for them. We're looking for the best. Grace believes the best about others. It actually sees them as better than they are. That's one of the things that love does. I need to do this, right? I need to do this. Here's the third viewpoint. We look through grace glasses and we will see that they're beside us, not beneath us. They're beside us, not beneath us. Right? That perspective is so huge. It's not here. It's not this. It's this. Jesus says, don't judge and you will not be judged. Don't condemn and you will not be condemned. Forgive and you will be forgiven. Like that, you're talking about the ground is level between me and all these other people in this room. Between me and all the people that I live with, the ground is level. These people that I look at every single day, they're beside me. They're not beneath me. You see, we like to complete phrases like this to let ourselves off the hook and keep ourselves in this place where we can look at people like this. And we say, I'm not perfect, but, I'm not perfect, but I don't smoke. At least I don't do that. I would never do that. Or I'm not perfect, but they swear. I don't swear. That's this, you see. I'm not perfect, but they look like slobs for church. We do this. What about this? I'm not perfect, but man, they don't discipline their kids. They just let them do whatever they want. I'm not perfect, but at least I didn't get a divorce. They got a divorce. Really? It's what we're doing right here. I'm not perfect, but do you know that he was arrested one time? Like, this is what we do. I'm not perfect, but man, their house is always such a mess. It's right there. Any standard of behavior that we think we're killing it on, we think we're nailing it, and we find people that aren't, and we do this, and it makes us feel a little better about ourselves. And Jesus says that is the wrong way of doing this, is looking through the microscope of judgment and finding a speck in somebody else's life that I don't think is in mine, so that I can feel a little better about me and the things that are wrong with me and the plank that is in my eye. We've got to look through grace glasses. We'll see that they're beside us. They're not beneath us. No one is beneath me. No one. I get to heaven the same way you do. Through the same grace, the same sacrifice on the cross, the same blood that was needed to forgive my sins, the same blood that was needed to forgive yours. We're on the same ground. Here's the fourth viewpoint that we look through grace glasses today. Number 4, we will see what they could become, not merely what they are. We'll see what they could become, not merely what they are. Jesus says to us, do not judge. And he also says, do not condemn. He says, do not condemn. And here's what he means by this. When he's telling us this. He says, you guys should not condemn. He says, don't write people off. Don't write people off. We tend to write people off. We just do. We tend to write people off. The microscope of judgment is very helpful for this. It's very helpful. As long as I can find a speck, as long as I can find something that's wrong in somebody else's life, then I can write them off, and I don't have to work very hard to make them a friend. I don't have to work very hard to be a brother or sister in Christ to them, because I've found a speck in their lives, and I don't trust that. And so therefore, I don't have to do the things I would have to do in order to love them the way that Jesus would want me to love them. Or look at this. Look, I think they voted Democrat. Well, how do you know? Well, they posted this thing on social media. And that sounds like the thing you'd post if you were woke. Gotta be careful. That's almost a verbatim quote. As long as we find one, as long as we find something, then I don't have to do the work to relate to love, to sacrifice for. I don't have to do any of those things. I can let myself off the hook that way, because I can condemn them. I can write them off. Remember what Jesus said about love? Remember what the Bible tells us about love? One of the things that love does in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is it always hopes. It's one of the things it always does. It's an interesting phrase. All of these things that it says love does, keeps no record of wrongs, love is patient, love is kind, all these things. One of the things it says that love does is it always hopes. You know what this means? It means that it never writes somebody off. They'd say, no, there's not, no, listen, you have no idea. You know the depths of death that God had to pull me through and from to save me? And I'm going to sit here and say that this dude is too far gone? Oh, that's the ultimate plank speck scenario. I say, no, I'm not going to look at them. No, we will never be able to see truly what God can do if we're looking through the microscope of judgment. But if we look through the glasses of grace, we're always hoping, right? That's the frame of love. Like, we can see through that lens, and we can see what God says, and we can see what they could become, not just what they are. I say, yes, they're this right now, but they could become this later. Like, if they just turn, if they would give their lives to Jesus Christ, I could see what they could become. I'm not going to write them off. And just as a reminder, we will never criticize anyone into change. We will never criticize anyone into real change. But people can be loved into it, though. And there's a big difference. So, viewpoint number 5. What are we going to see? We look through glasses of grace. We will see that God has forgiven more in us than what we have to forgive in them. we will see that God has forgiven more in us than what we have to forgive in them. Jesus says to us in this passage, forgive and you will be forgiven. Forgive and you will be forgiven. And what stops us from being able to forgive? Well, we certainly can't forgive if we don't see our own sin first. If we don't see our own sin first, we cannot forgive. It will never happen. But when we see our sin first, we understand the gravity of it. Understand the gravity of the cost that God paid to forgive my sin. And so it enables me to forgive other people's sin against me. They say, what did it cost God to forgive my sin? This is a good reference to have in our minds. 1 Peter 1:18 and 19 says this, for you know that it was not with perishable things such as silver or gold that you were redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to you from your ancestors, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect. That is all it costs to forgive me, to forgive Steve. The precious blood of Christ. Well, if it took that blood to forgive my massive list of sin that I can't even begin to populate myself because I can't see it all, then I can certainly forgive when somebody hurts me. I can certainly forgive when somebody says something about me behind my back. I can certainly forgive when somebody lets me down again and again and again and again. Certainly I can do that because I know that God's forgiven more in me than I ever will have to forgive in somebody else. I will never have to forgive even close to the amount of sin in somebody else that God has had to forgive in me over and over and over again. And if I'm looking at them with grace glasses, that's the first thing I'm going to see. So when God says forgive, I will not be so hesitant to do so because I know how much it costs God to forgive me. C.S. Lewis once said it like this. He said, to be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. This is what it's about. We can't do it if we keep taking the glasses off and looking at the microscope of judgment. We gotta look through glasses of grace and get these viewpoints that we won't get any other way. That's 5. Here's number 6. We will see people more like the way God sees us. We will see people more like the way God sees us. In this passage, there's a couple of interesting verses here. Starting in verse 39, he says this, he also told them this parable, can the blind lead the blind? Will they not both fall into a pit? The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher. And really all he is saying here is that the world is unforgiving. The world looks at each other through the microscope of judgment. He says, but I am teaching you how to look through grace glasses. Which one are you going to follow? He says, who are you going to follow? Who are you going to choose to see people like? Are you going to choose to see people the way the world does? Or are you going to choose to see people the way that God sees you? Like, this is what he's saying, because the student will be like the teacher. And then he says, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye? He continues right on with that because he's saying, this is all about perspective. You think that God chooses to see us the way that he does because his vision isn't very good? Do you think there's stuff in us that he's just missing? He's just, oh man, like I didn't know about that. Didn't look around that corner, didn't look behind that door. No, he's not missing anything, yet this is how he chooses to see us, and it's how he invites us to see each other. If we look through grace glasses, we're going to be seeing other people the way that God chooses to see us. So, I have a little a little helpful tool for us, right, as we wrap this up. It's the last thing in your notes. We should be as patient with other people as we hope God is with us. There's a little tool. You say, Pastor Steve, I don't know how to tell how I'm doing with the grace glasses thing. I'll tell you, here's how you can gauge it. You say, am I being as patient with the other people in my life as I hope God is with me? And if the answer is no, then I need to get my eye out of the microscope and put the grace glasses back on and start to look at the people in my life differently. You'll notice in these notes, these viewpoints, they're all choices. They're all choices, every one of them. Choose to see my sin before theirs. Choose to see their best before their worst. They're all choices. They're viewpoints, but they're choices. We choose to see. That's how we put the glasses on. So the gauge is, am I being as patient with other people as I hope God is being with me? And if that is not what it should be, I can choose to put the glasses of grace on. We make this choice long enough in our lives, over and over again. It's going to change our relationships. It's actually going to make it possible for us to have enduring ones, because I'll tell you this, there's no enduring relationships without the glasses of grace. I know I joked around about what Ben Franklin said. Before you get married, keep your eyes wide open. After you get married, keep them half shut. But there's truth in that. Not looking through the microscope anymore. I'm setting that aside. And I'm going to choose to look at my wife, my husband, my kids, my friends, my pastor, my coworker, my boss. I'm going to look at them through the glasses of grace. And that is the grace effect. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the truth that you've given us in your word this morning. Lord, I pray that you would help us do this. Help us to put on glasses of grace to see each other with, that it may totally change our relationships, Lord, and we glorify you. In Jesus' name, amen.